Hello there! Hello, we've reached 14, IAP, International Intellectual Abattoir. I might change it to International just so I can say it right. The Intellectual Abattoir, episode 14, with old friend of mine, Leo Kearse. You may know Leo from being a right-wing person. We get into that, whether that was a choice or not captured by his audience, which I know that his opponents would say, or maybe he was defined by his detractors. We sort of briefly speak about that, about how the right wing has become this catch-all term for someone who we don't want to say, like issues that they don't want you to touch or perpetrate, they label under that banner, and then they've made it a toxic brand. Anyway, I've known him for years and years and years. Great comedian. I think he's on tour with Francis Foster soon. So if you want to see him, look that up. He's got a YouTube channel. He also hosts a show on GB News, which I've done a few times. So he's actually like a broadcaster. Good conversation. Leo knows his stuff politically. Now, obviously, what I try to do with this, it's not that it's a themed pod or a conceptual pod, is I will get someone on who knows more about a subject, which is everyone, than me, and I will talk to them. So I wanted to talk to him about this because I'm obsessed, or not obsessed, I've been ruminating a lot lately, the last 6 months to a year, about this left-right labelling and how it instead of being a term which is shorthand for your political beliefs, it now is whether that person should have a platform or not, whether their opinions are relevant or not. And I think that's a very bad thing to say. And I just think if you go, right, this person's verboten almost, maybe that's a bit extreme. But this person's, oh yeah, but he's right wing. Oh, that's a right wing dog whistle. And I know Leo used to have a bit about microaggressions and go, microaggression is something that's so inconsequential you can barely notice it. And I guess that's a dog whistle, isn't it? Like he said about Kelly Jean Keane doing this thing with a zip that a dog whistle to the far right. Like, mate, if you're forensically fine-tooth combing everything someone does to try and make their behaviour fit an agenda of what you want them to be, demonise them, I think it's a trap. I think it's a trap we must avoid. We must allow everyone to express themselves, and then if people are free to express themselves, the people with more suspect opinions, you'll know who they are and what they are, what their opinions are, what they think, and what to stamp out. You do not want to be driving 90% of the population underground with their beliefs, because that is where they can fester, and that way extremism lies. So let's all be a little bit more moderate and a little bit more tolerant. And it's a good conversation. He's a very funny comedian and a very funny person. He's a quick thinker. Like he never doesn't know what he thinks about something. I like that in people. Don't you? It's a really good quality when people go, I don't know how I feel about that. That's obviously strong. But then I feel like Leo's thought about it. Everything that goes in, he's thought about it, packaged it, is familiar with his relationship to that in that subject, and then he's got an opinion. Opinionated. I could have just said one word. Why say one word when you can say a bazillion? But anyway, Leo Kearse, so let's get into it. Here we are on the Skype machine, all the way from London, I'm guessing. It's Leo Kearse. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. I'm a bit jet lagged.
Why, where have you been?
From Australia.
For everybody,
word for word for the bit that we didn't fucking record.
I did record. Oh, you've dropped out. No, you've paused. It's fine. But so you've just been.
Am I still?
No, you froze. It's fine. It's fine. For those that don't know, the reason we're laughing is we just had this conversation and then he froze and he's. But I can't do it. I feel like such a fraud. But you've been to Australia. But you went there for like 2 days, which means that I'm going to pretend he hasn't frozen. That you went for like you was in the air as long as you wasn't. So we're having a bit of Skype problem. It's not. I don't think it's me or Leo being fucking thick. I think it is actually the technology. But so you flew to Australia for a weekend.
Yeah. I was speaking at the Conservative Political Action Conference, CPAC.
Yeah.
So it's like a big conference, big in the States, and they got it in Europe. And they've got it in Australia as well. So I did some stand-up, and I did a speech about the rise of sectarian voting
Yeah, no, that is something like
political Islam.
Yeah, that is definitely something that worries me, especially. Well, I don't want to get into that first. We'll get into it in a bit, but about where you saw them sucking the dicks of community leaders because the police could go and visit one bloke and that would get them 450,000 votes or whatever.
Yeah, and also the police are like, oh yeah, we know how to police this riot or whatever because we've spoken to the community leaders, and it's like, so the community leaders are telling you, what's going to happen and what's going to do. That's not how policing works.
No,
it's like, oh, we're going to police this burglary. We're going to police this football match. So we've asked them what they want. We're going to ask these burglars what they want. It's like, no, you're supposed to be the police. You're supposed to police them. And also, they don't tell you. They don't select what policing they want from a menu. Yeah,
the community is a section of people that lives within a society, and the police is above that, governing the society as a whole.
Yeah, also, how come like other groups don't get the same? Like, where's me? Where's the Scottish communities?
Well, they don't go. We're gonna go speak to the racists, and we've decided we're gonna let them set fire to hotels full of because that community, the community leader has said that's what they want to do. But just before we get into anything else, I was going to say, when I have someone I've known for a long time, because I like to show off my long-term memory because my short-term memory is really bad, and I like to remember the first time I met someone, and I can remember the first time I met you. Can you remember it?
I think it was at one of those gigs that was run above a pub by Liam Mackay.
I think we met before that. It was downstairs in the new act competition at the Leicester Square.
Right.
I think that was, and you was eating a bag of donuts or something out of a wine, and you offered me one. That's the thing. You always remember stuff like that. And I went, oh, hello. You went, you want one? And I thought, oh, he's tall. And I realised at the time, I was like, I don't like it when people are taller than me. That's why I don't like drag queens. Because they're normally tall and wear platforms and then a beehive, and it's like them cassowary birds. I just don't like it when they tower over me. But you're very tall, for those who don't know. And I remember it was, I think Stooch was the MC. I've got a mad memory for them days, but I can't remember.
This would have been like one of the heats.
Yeah, it was a heat. Yeah. And I don't know. I didn't get through or win, but I think I did all right, and I think you did all right, but I don't know who did win. But I can remember like Becky Fury was on, James Gill was on.
I remember that. I remember Becky Fury being on. Man, she was. Well, I'm not gonna.
You don't have to say. But yeah. So anyway, that was the first time we met, and that was a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And since then, so you've got a lot of hats, like you just said. But getting back to the conservative thing, so I was just thinking, conservative means different things in some of these countries, doesn't it? So in Australia, who from the outside and knowing as little as I know, they seem to be fucking mega woke communist shitbags almost, like it's got out there, or some parts of Australia.
Yeah, and certainly like in a lot of the government and in a lot of institutions, it's sort of like they're way more woke than the UK, and like the reaction in certain places, like in Melbourne, the reaction to lockdown, like the government erected, they called it the Ring of Steel. They had literal steel fences and stuff, and man, they were like smashing the shit out of people. I actually spoke to a guy whose shoulder was broken, and people being thrown on the ground, people being arrested and detained, and not for throwing rocks at the police or anything. This is for posting on Facebook that they were going to go
or not wearing a mask.
Yeah, or not wearing a mask, or posting on Facebook that they were going to go to an event, or some sort of that's supposedly banned because it's more than 6 people getting together or whatever. People going for what? And the mad thing is, like, if we're supposed to be social distancing and all the rest of it, if somebody's walking their dog on the beach and then like 10 cops come along and bundle them to the ground and shoot the dog, like that's more of a sort of COVID spreader event than if the person is just on their own on the beach. So I found the whole policing of lockdown like super mega dumb. And in Australia, like some parts of Australia, they did it even harsher and even more stupidly than they did in the UK. I was lucky over the lockdown. I was actually stuck in Australia for a bit of it, but in Western Australia, where they didn't really lock down much. So I was going to the beach every day, and it was great. And then when I came back to the UK, I didn't follow the rules, and nobody ever gave me any hassle. Nobody was ever like, we never got parties raided by the police or anything like that. So there's like plenty of sort of underground stuff going on. It was good because it was normal stuff that you should be doing, like having lunch with friends or whatever. But they gave it an extra frisson of excitement, made you feel like you're in the French Revolution.
Yeah, or like the War of the Roses, fraternising with the enemy or something. So was there any kind of protest security? Because I know, was it Kelly Jean King did she get, when she went to Australia, she found herself getting a bit sort of resistance, didn't she?
Yeah, it was mad. So Kelly J. Keane, she was just speaking on women's rights. She's she's gender critical.
TERF, I guess other people would call her.
people say TERF, but like TERF has become this sort of slur word when really it's
bigot. It means bigot, doesn't it?
That's what they think it means.
They think it does.
To most of us, it just means, oh, that's a regular feminist from like 10 years ago.
I had one on.
I mean, like J.K. Rowling or whatever. Who people like J.K. Rowling used to be just impeccable, unimpeachable lefties. And then all of a sudden, same with Graham Linehan, all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait a minute, should we really be allowing, males into women's sport and, males into, male criminals, male rapists into female prisons? Should we be sterilizing and surgically maiming children and young people instead of, maybe looking at, do they really need to have their dick cut off, or is there another way they could be treated that could be better for them in the long term? And of course, anybody who says that is denounced as a bigot.
Transphobe.
So Kelly J. Keane was over there, and she was giving a speech or something, and there was like protests against her, and there was protests for her, like she had soup thrown on her and stuff, and some supposed Nazis turned up. Like, I say supposed because like whenever people say Nazi, I mean, like, man, are there actually any Nazis? I bet there's probably about like 100 Nazis.
I've never met one.
No,
and I would.
And you think,
I'm a dog whistle. I'm a human dog whistle for nuts.
Yeah. But like, I never meet them, and like the ones who turned up to Kelly G. Keane, anything she does is denounced as Nazi. She was on New Zealand TV, and she was playing with her zip, like that, and New Zealand TV blurred it out and said that it was it was a dog whistle message, a dog whistle neo-Nazi symbol, because she was just playing with her zip like that, just absent-mindedly. They said because she's doing that, to hold the zip, then that's a white power symbol. But it's like, no, it's just a woman playing with her zip, you absolute lunatics. But so she gave some speech in I can't remember where it was, but neo-Nazis turned up, but they were all like, man, I don't know if you saw them, they were like, it looked like somebody had ordered some gay neo-Nazi strippers protesting like for her, but they were dressed in like hot pants. They honestly looked like some sort of gay stripper type thing. So I think there's question marks as to the authenticity of these Nazis. You know what I mean?
You get called a conspiracy theorist for this thing, where you see people on the sort of January the 6th, was it, and they had like combat boots, and these are just feds, undercover feds. It's controlled opposition or fake opposition. It's such a known thing that people do. And I don't know why if you point it out, everyone's like, oh, you right-wing conspiracy theorist. So anyway, that brings me into that point, really.
Well, yeah, and also all the sort of protests, like the BLM protests, the Palestinian protests. People are like, there's this sort of idea that it's some sort of organic grassroots thing.
I know.
And it's like, who's printing out all these placards?
I know.
Like, there's literal like U-Haul trucks pulling up and like all the stuff getting unloaded for the protest. There's like money behind it. There's like
where the fucking flags come from? Money. All of a sudden, there's like 1,000 people waving Palestine flags. Like, where'd you get them from? The bloke down the flag shop must have been like, Jesus Christ, cleaned out of our Palestine flags. Good job we had a big stock of them.
Yeah.
Where did they go get them from? I don't know. You buy a flag.
Maybe this is all orchestrated by Big Flag.
Yeah, big flagger. Yeah, but that's what I was going to say to you, because so you're talking at conservative things, like conventions and stuff. Because this is the thing, I had Lewis Schaefer on the other day, and I said I'm not right wing, and he went, "Oh, you are," and I was like, I suppose I am, but it wasn't my choice. Did you feel like would you could have considered yourself a conservative 10 years ago? Was it just the sands shifted so much you've been left there?
Yeah, man. Like it's weird because like in the 90s I was like definitely left wing.
Me too.
Like I was, but the sort of values that used to be considered left wing, like being suspicious of big business, being suspicious of the government, and like wanting individual rights, and
freedoms. That's
and
right wing now.
That's right wing now. How did that become like? I'm right wing because I'm a classic liberal. Like, how does that even make sense? And the people on the left want this real hardcore authoritarian government that controls everything, controls the economy, controls everything. They've got
brings up your children for you.
Yeah, and they've sort of achieved it. I mean, Liz Truss was at this conference as well, and I thought Liz Truss had been like this incompetent, shambolic prime minister who got thrown out because she made such a mess of it. But there was like an orchestrated move by I mean, when you say deep state, you sound like a conspiracy theorist, but there really is.
Of course,
like the public sector is, I mean, it's growing in size all the time, and it's like the people there, they've all got the same kind of opinions, so they control everything.
And you can't vote them in and out, is it? They're just there.
You can't vote them in and out. So Liz Truss, I mean, I guess Liz Truss wasn't really voted in either, apart from by the Tory grandees. But Liz Truss gets in, and she's got these ideas that she wants to implement. She doesn't even get a chance to implement them. Like the people that the Bank of England sort of initiated this sort of thing with gilts to like actually generate the disruption in the market and give an excuse to get her out and get the approved person, Rishi Sunak, in. And it's a real shame. I think Liz Truss, I think a better what she could have done better is like announce, because she announced all these tax cuts, and we urgently need tax cuts to get more money in the economy and to just free up the economy. At the moment, we're just sort of stifled by the
hoard. Everyone's hoarding because it's just always doom and gloom about tomorrow, isn't it? Economy-wise.
Yeah, but we really need like public sector cuts. Like people don't understand how, because everybody's saying, "Oh, we've got to have mass immigration because we've got all these jobs to fill," and it's like there's people in this country that could fill those jobs, but they're just sitting on their arse for Haringey Council. There's so many people. I used to work for Haringey Council. Everybody's just sitting on their arse doing fuck all. Like, I mean, all right, there's probably people collecting the bins, they're doing some good, but most local authorities are just a sort of Keynesian employment scheme for people with shit degrees who won't really be able to make it or excel in the private sector. So instead we have these sort of holding pens where they earn a middle class salary and just push bits of paper around but don't actually affect any change or do anything practical whatsoever. And that's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like, it's this way of the government kind of buying votes. Like Labour constantly are just going to expand the public sector. I mean, Tories did it as well, but they're going to expand the public sector. So then, everybody knows that they've got to vote Labour to get their jobs. It's the same as, in Argentina, the socialists, the Peronists would give you like two gallons of fuel if you voted for them. If you showed the voting slip that showed that you voted for them, they'd give you 2 gallons.
How is that not, what do you call it? That's corruption.
Illegal?
Yeah, bribery, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, they don't care over there, do they?
Nah, and it got so bad. I mean, Argentina is really a sort of example of where we're going to be in 10, 20 years. Because Argentina was a really prosperous country. It was like, I think it was the 4th largest economy in the world at one point 100 years ago. And then socialism just creeps into everywhere. The tentacles go in everywhere, and it just chokes down the economy. And then it eventually got so bad, because you need the private sector to be thriving. You need wealth creation. You need a lot of economic activity, because that lifts everybody out of poverty. Capitalism lifts people out of poverty. You wouldn't know it, like looking at what comedians post on Facebook. You think capitalism is the most evil thing in the world. Everybody's like, what causes poverty? That's the wrong way to look at it. Like, poverty is just the default state if you're just sitting there doing nothing. We should look at what causes prosperity, because prosperity isn't the default state. And so Javier Milei got voted in Argentina. He's like a really, quite, compared to what they had, really radical libertarian free market, Milton Friedman, and he's completely, stripped away, removed so much of the state and removed so much of the state's power and regulations, and now the free market can thrive. And also, as a result of doing that, house prices, rental prices have come down. Everybody's like, oh, we need the government to say rents can't go up. It's like, that doesn't make rents come down. If you introduce rent controls, it doesn't make rents come down. It means people take their properties off the market because they can't make money off it. So it ends up with like less properties. You get like a few people who are paying less rent, but then they're stuck there. They can't move because if you move, you lose your cheap rent. Everybody else can't get a place. It's the dumbest thing. The free market is the biggest gift.
It's the only thing that works.
And it works. And it's human nature.
The only thing what works.
The trouble with the left is they're really utopian.
It works on paper, the left idea, doesn't it? But human beings aren't bits of paper. And communism is like when you actually get people with... And greed and ambition and wanting to feather your own nest are human characteristics that ain't going anywhere. They're in there for a reason. They ain't going anywhere. And that doesn't jive with your Marxism and your communism. It just doesn't. Unless it's imposed upon you by men with sticks. Yeah,
if you've got a system that depends on everybody acting in the best interest of everyone, you've got a system that's not going to work. Nobody wants to act in the interest of like other people. I want to act in the interest of me and my family. You know what I mean?
But yeah, it's not. But this is the thing. I guess that saying that, what the left will do as a sort of straw man would go into that Babel fish in their ear, and it would be translated into you saying, "I want to cause harm to other people." It's not about wishing harm on others. It's just let's all look after ourselves. Let's have the fewest laws and policies that get in the way of that, and let's just sort of like, and it fucking works. It just all of the great sort of like economies and. Well, you got the West versus the East, haven't you? I guess is the old thing. You'd say, like, look at Russia and China, and I'd say, like, I used to look at them places and go, oh my God, they do this, they do that, and they're doing it here now, like the social stuff. It's just scary, man.
Yeah, and at least in China, you know, when they have all the controls over, you know, what you're allowed to say, and you know, really restrictive social controls imposed by the government. At least the government there is imposing it. Like to sort of keep
openly
China strong,
as well.
and to sort of and to uplift, you know, to maintain the sort of Han majority and keep people.
They're preparing for war,
happy.
Aren't they? That's what it feels like.
In this country, we've got all that shit imposed on us, you know, not just by the government, but by the sort of the systemic wokeism that's through all institutions and all corporations, and it's all designed to demoralize and
100%.
Destroy this country. You know what I mean? So we're not even like I wouldn't. It would still be bad if we were doing it like China, but we're doing it worse. We're doing it to destroy ourselves.
Undermine ourselves, not strengthen ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got this theory.
All this stuff like, you need to abolish whiteness and all this stuff that's like, it's the language of genocide.
Do you know that fucking prick in America, that black bloke, Eric Dyson, Mark Dyer Dyson or something?
No.
Oh, is this he sort of looks like a preacher, and he just comes out of all this stuff predicated on whiteness. You got to look him up. You headbutt your screen. Everything's racism, but it's like if you don't. It's like he just talks shit. I saw he was the one who said to Jordan Peterson at some big conference, some big festival ideas. He went, "You're just a mean old white man." Have you seen that? You might have seen it's quite a famous clip. It's like, well, that's a terrible thing to say. But so when you were saying about the immigration and stuff, I've been percolating this theory lately because what I like to do, Leo, is I don't research anything, but I look at stuff and then I go, how can I invent something that would explain this? And just like as the machine over here started farming out call centres and manufacturing to cheaper places, we're now doing that with labour. I think the third world are like basically human farms. And I think what the machine is thinking is, let's let the humans grow over there where they've got no quality of life and no expectations. Then we'll bring them over here to ride the Just Eat bikes and work in our places, 15 people to a house. And instead of raising the standard of living for us, because we're a bit chippy, aren't we? We expect the quality of life. It's let's grow them over there and then we'll bring them over here. So everything over here, and I can't say I can't say the next bit because I got a YouTube strike for it. I got a YouTube strike. I can't even say it, but I think that they're discouraging us from populating like they used to, because they want to bring in these people with zero standards of expectations of cost of standard of living.
Yeah, if you look at what's propagated in the media, especially the left wing media, actually all media is left wing now, but you know, stuff in the Guardian, it's all like, you know, don't have kids, it's dull, it's boring. You should have margaritas
carbon
with
footprint
the girls,
as well, yeah.
And it's and also don't have kids because of climate change. Yeah. But then, you know, at the same time they're saying, we're not having enough kids here, so we need to bring in hundreds of millions of people to keep the population going up. And like, number one, why does the population need to go up? I mean, they say it's because, you know, we've got an aging population. Yeah. It's like, well, people just have to work a bit longer then. Yeah, you know what I mean? This is all just happening because boomers want to go on cruises. Yeah. Boomers want to retire. And it's like, no, I'm like, you know, sorry,
Sell your second house, maybe.
Yeah, we're at the point where we can't do that anymore, and I don't think it's right to. There's this idea on the left that if you bring people here, people are just interchangeable cogs, and if you bring a former Janjaweed militant from Africa, it's the exact same as like a kid being raised and going to a grammar school in Berkhamsted or something, and it's not. People in different parts of the world have got radically different cultures.
Yes,
and
that will never mesh. That there are some that it will never mesh.
Never going to mesh, and also I think some cultures are better than others, and I think British culture, for all our faults, we got it pretty right. That's why we built the world. We've got a fantastic culture of sort of strong institutions and being able to organize and being able to form a queue and all this stuff.
Empathize as well. I think British culture is good at empathise and going, how is our behaviour affecting those people? Maybe it was we've obviously obviously like that culture has perpetuated certain things, but then realised it and stopped it. That's quite unique.
Yeah, totally. Like we're the first country to stop slavery.
Yeah, I know.
Like it's ridiculous, but we still get all the blame.
But
for
why
slavery.
are we the ones that wring our hands and, well, as a culture, why have we got the most self-loathing per capita of any other culture then?
I'm not sure. I think it might be like a hangover from Christianity, because it's Christianity's got this very pious sort of turn the other cheek, treat thy neighbor, blah blah blah, and it's a wokeism is just the sort of next iteration of that. It's got a very sort of Christian feel to it.
It's the most pernicious version of fake altruism. It's all self-serving and signalling, but under the guise of I don't exist, I'm doing this for everyone else. It's so self-serving.
Yeah, and it's also civilizational suicide. It's nuts. And people, even the way the riots were framed as like, this is just some far-right thugs who are, they just hate people, so they're going out, and it's like, no, these girls were stabbed to death.
They're angry,
and it matched the pattern of Islamist attacks. So people are obviously sick of it, and we've been told there's no way we're having less. We're going to have 1.2 million new people every year coming into the country, and people are like, well, but there's a danger. And then all the gaslighting around it, like
fucking insane.
They say that this guy, they're like, well, it had nothing to do with immigration at all. The guy was born in Britain. The guy's called like Muganwa Rudapakana. Like he's from fucking, like his parents are from Rwanda. He's a first generation immigrant. It's like it's not the same. Like there's a sort of trend for alienated second and third generation migrants, drifting to radical ideologies that give them a sense of home and stuff. And when white kids do it, everybody's horrified and they're like, this is incels, this is far right radicalism. And you're right, far right radicalism is a terrible thing. But I mean, like, I think we also need to look at where it's happening with like Islam and stuff like that, Islamism, and it's also bad when Islamists do it, and because they also tend to like do more damage.
That's the thing. This is the thing. I can even hear in you a subtle change. It's such a fucking eggshell thing to say. Whereas like you can be as heavy-handed and clumsy and generalising as you want if you're talking about the far right. You can say the worst things. But as soon as you start going about another group, I can feel myself tense up and go, oh! But it's just like, I don't want cunts, so I don't care what colour they are. Yeah. Can we just stop people doing stuff like that?
If you look at the far right, I mean, the far right must be looking at Islamists and being like, who does their PR?
Yeah.
Because if you're an Islamist, you can have like the Green Lane Mosque in Birmingham that has all these hate preachers, like saying how infidels should be destroyed, and all this stuff about gay people and women and all the rest of it. And they still get money from the government. They get government grants. Can you imagine the government giving grants to a neo-Nazi group?
Well, not even that. Even what's deemed to be
effectively the same thing.
But 1% right of dead centre. It's centre now, I think, is right. That's what. So getting back to that. So I have an issue with. I despise being called right wing. I used to have a real aversion to it. I guess now the trouble is they've took it too far, and the right isn't growing. It's now they're just bundling everyone into it. Like, I don't think more people are right wing, but more people are in. Like if you expand the parameters of that group, just fucking basically 98% of people, I feel like now. It's like if you've got a common sense idea that you're right wing. If you say, is climate change human led, you're right wing. I always say, how is it fucking political to talk about the weather? That's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, no, totally. And I think, left and right aren't really, meaningful demarcations anymore.
No.
I think the real difference between people is you got people who just want to be left alone and get on with their lives and not have government interference in their lives and other people's lives. And then you got people who want the government to run everybody's lives and, take all their money and redistribute it. People who want communism, effectively.
They do, don't they? I think they do.
So, and all those people, yeah, but they're always, man. There's so many people who are. I'd say most young people are pretty, and I can understand why they're not into capitalism. If you're in a generation that hasn't been able to accumulate capital and buy a house and stuff, then why would you respect or want that system? And again, that's if we didn't have mass immigration, house prices would be so much lower because we'd have millions of people who weren't in the country. So we'd have all those properties would be on the market, and they'd obviously be much, much cheaper.
I guess that just when you said that, Saint, I just thought like that's sort of like the crab in the bucket mentality. Because I would say to a young person, "Oh, it's all right for you. I can't afford a house. I'll never be able to afford a house." I'm like, "Yeah, but under communism, no one would have a house. Is that just you want nobody to have one, or it's just because you haven't got one?" And
under communism, the only guy living in a nice house is like the party apparatchiks.
The oligarch. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So do you have a problem with was there a point where you, because I don't want to put words in your mouth and I don't know, but was there a point where you feel, well, I've been pushed to the right, I'm going to own it now, or was it more that you willfully stepped that way? Or
Yeah, no, I kind of willfully stepped that way because I just thought, so much of the stuff, like I worked in the public sector, and that really woke me up as to, the sort of difference between this sort of utopian ideal of like, oh yeah, we'll have these people working to improve people's lives, doing whatever it is, and then you got the reality of people are just sitting on their arse because people generally don't want to do work unless they have to, and if you're in the public sector, you don't have to. So it really woke me up, the amount of waste and the profligacy. Like after I left the public sector, I worked for an intelligence consultancy, but I did some management consultancy as part of that. So I went into this big government organization, and we're restructuring the IT department and cutting costs, and the amount of waste that was going on. Like there was a guy, like when we're going around just working out what everybody was doing, there's a guy who had 2 laptops on his desk, and we're like, what's that laptop? And he's like, I'm running a chicken farm in like Gambia or something like that.
You had enough time to do that?
Yeah, and it's like, what's the other laptop? And he's like, I'm Forex trading on that one. And it's like, yeah, what about your job?
Shit. So you've seen it. You've been in the beast and seen it.
Yeah. And also the boss of the IT department ran an IT recruitment consultancy outside of work. So he was hiring people from his own recruitment consultancy into the IT department. So he was hiring in people who weren't needed at all because he was making tens of thousands of pounds off each one that he hired. And it's so corrupt. That's fraud. That's
government money, right?
He wasn't even fucking fired.
And it's interesting because this is the thing. You go, oh well, it's sort of funny. Like I'm like, oh, that's a really British thing to get shirk and blag in a job. But you mentioned Haringey Council, and of course their famously failed Baby P, which is probably just nobody doing their fucking job, and we all know what happened in that horrific story. So it's not harmless. It's not a harmless pursuit to slack off when you're in the civil service or public sector, is it? There's repercussions.
Yeah, and also, there could be people trying to do their job, like social workers. Is an example of people that you do actually need. You need them. You need ambulance drivers. You need firemen. You need people collecting the bins and stuff. But then you've got all these other people, all these like managers. Yeah. And every year there's an extra layer of sort of managerial stuff and legislation and bureaucracy. Like so, net zero. Then all of a sudden you've got somebody making sure they've got an extra form to fill in, checking how they're hitting net zero targets through their work, and they've got to fill that in for each person they see. And then you got the next time it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. So you've got to show how you're making Haringey more diverse. You've got to tick all those boxes, and so each year there's new forms to fill in, and all this nonsense, all this guff that's just completely unnecessary. Like diversity, equity, and inclusion is just an absolute nonsense sort of religion that
Yeah.
doesn't do anything.
It's true, actually. You use the word religion. I've noticed a lot with the. I'm going to use the word woke. Like, people will go like this. Oh, they'll complain about woke. It's just shorthand for you know what it means. It's just become the word that refers to it now. But it is a religion, and it is that kind of like pledge. Like, with things like pronouns and DEI and that, it is like play along to pledge allegiance to this deity of wokeness or whatever it is, and it's just such a. It's like a ritual you have to go through, isn't it? It's not. I don't think it's about what it is. I don't think pronouns are about pronouns anymore. It's about. It's about. You got to. You know what I mean? It's like when they put that thing in your mouth when you're a Catholic, not his cock, the little wafer thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like on your knees and they're spoon feed. You're going to say your pronouns like a good little boy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about making someone capitulate.
Yes, exactly the word. Yeah,
capitulate. So many people are going along with stupid ideas. What I've noticed is like at my kid's nursery, you're supposed to take your shoes off before you go into the baby room. Right. And, at the end of the day, because I guess everybody's going home and stuff, there's people who don't. So sometimes I'd take my shoes off and sometimes, one of the nursery staff would be like, oh, you don't need to. Well, if I'd taken my shoes off and then another parent comes in with their shoes on, I'm like, yeah. He's got his fucking shoes on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like another night, that'd be me, because we all know that at the end of the day, taking the shoes off doesn't really matter. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think when you follow a rule that you know is dumb, it almost like the rule being dumb makes you angrier if other people aren't following it.
That's interesting. I guess once you follow the rules, if you don't then impose them, they lose meaning, and then you feel dumb for following them. It's a bit like when people are getting conned, and you're sending £1,000 a month to a Nigerian prince because he's stringing you along, and then it's like when he's got enough money, he's going to send you the million, and you go, "What are you doing? You're being ripped off. Stop sending the money." But they keep sending it because if they stop sending that £1,000 a month, they've definitely been ripped off because it's ended. And I think that's that whole thing. Once you're on that slippery, I'm going to say hamster wheel of wokeness and social justice and being aware of everything. You have to just follow the next one and the next one and the next one, because otherwise you've got to admit the last 10 years of your life was a folly. So you can't get off it.
And also you've got to signal to other woke people that you're one of them. So if you got like, Steve brackets he/him, in your email signature, then, people know, oh, he's one of us. He sent that signal. So he's safe. There's
that thing as well, Leo, of the signal has to increase to prove your allegiance to your tribe. Like if me and you supported Arsenal and you go, oh, I love Arsenal, you go, yeah, we're all Arsenal fans, I love Arsenal, and you go, oh, I hate Spurs, you go, I hate Spurs more than you, and then Steve goes and stabs a Spurs fan because he wants to be the biggest Arsenal fan. That's how these things escalate, isn't it? It's about, you have to keep outdoing each other to prove your worth in the tribe that you've picked.
Yeah, and there's like huge damage that can come from people trying to do good. And the trouble with people that are trying to do good is they're never questioned by their own conscience. There's a quote by, I think it's C.S. Lewis. It's like, somebody who knows that they're doing evil is going to be in doubt. They're going to be racked with doubt. They're going to feel bad about it. Somebody who thinks that they're doing good, even if that good is like, shooting, school teachers in Cambodia because they're intellectuals or whatever, they're not troubled by their conscience like that.
There's an absolute belief, isn't there, that isn't theirs.
Yeah, and then you got, so the idea that we shouldn't be racist, that's a sort of noble aim. We shouldn't be racist unless it's funny. I think we can have,
that's racial.
Yeah. I think if it's a good enough joke, then it's allowed. But man, so we shouldn't be racist. That's something everybody can agree with. But then the pursuit of not being racist, like the Manchester Arena bomber. A security guard didn't stop that bomber, and bear in mind it's a Muslim guy with a big backpack on. A concert.
That would be profiling. You can't search him.
Yeah, he was like, well, I'm not going to stop him because somebody might accuse me of being racist. So in the attempt to not be racist or to not appear racist, he enabled the most horrific crime imaginable. Same with the grooming gangs. People looking the other way because it's like, well, I can't tackle this. I might get accused of being racist.
They actually admitted that, didn't they? The police said we didn't want to police it for fear of, like I said, we get back to what you said at the start. The community, you can't have this. When the community has got that much collective power, which trumps the law of the land. It's what we live. We're going back to sort of like the tribal system that. Like these sort of like feudal tribes, and it's fucking nuts, isn't it? But
we're gonna see the balkanization of the UK. We're gonna, because communities, for want of a better word, are sort of concentrated in areas. It's not like all the Muslims that came to the UK are sort of evenly spread across the country. They're sort of geographically concentrated in certain areas, and as that concentration grows, it becomes much more pronounced. Like in wards in Birmingham, you've got like almost all white, and then just over here it's almost all Muslim, and that's going to lead eventually, as the Muslim population is growing, and the Muslim population is growing incredibly fast. Like over the last decade, it's increased by 44%. So that's almost doubling every 10 years. And with the amount of immigration we're having, it's going to increase even more. So we are going to get to the point where it's doubling at least every 10 years. So within like a couple of generations, we're going to have a huge Muslim population. And then we're going to get, the conflict that we've seen with the riots is going to be tiny compared to the conflict we're going to have.
Yeah, it is. And the conflict's it's sort of like the thing about the wokeness, or whatever you want to call it, the left-wing liberalism that's allowing it will not be tolerated under. Yeah. That's the weird thing. That's why you said, I can't remember how you phrased it earlier, that it's like this like the opposite of self-serving, it's sort of self-destructive thing that the West got. Because the thing is, the woker the person, the more it's like, and this is probably an old trite sort of conversation to have, but that sort of like tolerating intolerance, it does get to a point where something's got to give. I had Kelly Taylor on the other day, and she was saying that about, like, she wants trans people to live their best life and be happy, but she doesn't want them to come into the toilet. So there's the immovable force and the unstoppable object, or the unstoppable object, fuck, you know what I mean, the unstoppable object, the immovable, fucking hell, Leo, it's like I fucking can't get it out. Something's got to give, basically, isn't it? And it's like, so we have to have these conversations, because I know, like, when you have now, why you keep going on about that? It's like, because we haven't got to the bottom of it, and it does matter. Yeah. There will be a time when it does matter, and it matters to you or your family. We'll sort it out before someone gets fucking groped up or something, innit?
Yeah, totally. And, like, you only need to look at, there's examples of it happening all around the world. Like, so Hamtramck in Michigan, it's a town that had, they've had huge immigration from Muslim countries. And it's a town that had the first Muslim council in the US, and the liberals, the progressives in the area, like, helped to make it happen. And at the time they were celebrating it. They were saying, "Oh, this is so wonderful. We've got the first Muslim council. It's so diverse, and it's a real, it's a real shot in the eye for Trump. He's going to hate it." What was the first thing the Muslim Council did?
I bet it was unconstitutional, whatever it was.
They banned the pride flag.
Yeah, there you go.
From public property.
There you go.
And so all the progressives were furious. They were like, "Oh, this is terrible. We helped you. We supported you. We were kind and tolerant to you." And it's like, they don't get it. That, like, stuff like this isn't transactional. The Muslim guys are motivated by their ideology, so they're not. They'll be inclusive up to a point. Look at the Iranian Revolution. In the Iranian Revolution, the socialists, the leftists, marched shoulder to shoulder with the Islamists to overthrow the Shah, who's seen as, all the things that are the same things that, young people say are bad today, like capitalist, the West, and all the rest of it. So they overthrew the Shah. The Islamists got into power. So you'd think, are the socialists going to get their nice, queer poetry groups and all that set up by the government? It's like, no, the Islamists turn around,
chuck you off the roof.
Yeah, they put them in jail and they executed them, and so it worked out really badly for the socialists. And the same thing will happen in the UK and in France and in places with big Muslim populations. You'll get, once the population gets to a certain size, you'll get the left helping Islamists into power, and then it's not going to end well for them.
Fucking bizarre. It's a bizarre. Like, the conspiracies theorist in me goes, have our institutions, our educational institutions first, like the colleges in America, have they been infiltrated by bad actors that want to undermine us and give us this self-loathing so they can sneak communism in? Because if you wanted to, they've tried it with tanks and planes, and we all that's quite straightforward, and we know what's happening. So now it's this sort of like creeping death, isn't it? They sort of get in behind you and under the guise of inclusivity, and it's like you sort of think we're rolling over for them, but we're doing it. It's like Quislings, is that the phrase? Yeah. But so you were saying before we recorded, there was something on, did you say there's a conspiracy you want to talk about on Wikipedia?
Oh, yeah, so Wikipedia just changed their page on the grooming gangs. So the grooming gang scandal in the UK, which is, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of young girls, like predominantly
Just
white,
completely failed.
Also Sikh as well, were targeted by, I mean, with a particular grooming gang scandal that we're talking about, was Pakistani Muslim men, and some other, there were some other people. It was predominantly Pakistani Muslim men, and from a particular sect. So I mean, a lot of my Muslim mates are furious about this because they're like, it's got nothing to do with us.
No,
we're
true.
not that kind of Muslim.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So, but I mean, it was a shocking scandal. It was just ignored by the authorities. It's it's young girls who are vulnerable because they're in the care system and they're being abused by these men. And even though they're like 12 or even younger, sometimes they're being groomed, being given alcohol and cigarettes and kebabs and all the rest of it.
Kebabs are fine.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a horrific thing, and it's like one of those things. It's like it's almost become like if you mention it, then people are, oh, you far right bigots.
Yeah. Because
how could the fucking industrial scale rape of children be this thing that the left?
Because they've got no answer to it, so they try and take that one off the table. Steel man, oh, don't go on about that. It's like, well, yeah, I'm going to go on about it.
It doesn't fit
because they've got no answer to
dream.
It. It's the
they
place.
Got this utopian.
Yeah,
they got this utopian dream that like multiculturalism is going to work. So this is just a little bump on the road to this utopia. It's like that saying. Was it Christopher Hitchens who said utopia is this dream island that you never get to and you sail to it across a sea of blood.
Yeah.
Like so any amount of evil can happen if you're following this utopian dream.
Yes.
Whereas in reality, I'm like, man, if they're raping kids, then that's bad and that's got to be stopped, and we've got to put a complete stop to it. And if it's linked to any particular ethnic group or demographic group, then we've got to focus on them. Instead, the authorities completely ignored it.
And admitted they ignored it.
Yeah, they admitted they ignored it. And the Wikipedia page has just been updated to essentially say, oh, it's a conspiracy theory.
No, you're joking.
It's a moral. What's the phrase they use? It's a moral panic.
Do you know what? This is the thing, because conspiracy right wing is the new conspiracy theories, in a term that the FBI or the CIA came up with conspiracy theory to talk about to label people that didn't believe the JFK assassination was just one man acting on his own with a magic bullet, and right wing is now that, isn't it? It's like, oh, this is the trick. Like they say that old phrase that the greatest trick the devil ever performed was he convinced people he didn't exist. Well, now I think it's the opposite. That they're trying to... What they're doing is they're flipping it. So it's like right wing equals bad. And we go, yeah, right wing's bad because the Nazis, you remember them? Yeah, they were out of order, right? So they were a bit cliquey, weren't they? We're gonna say, look, right wing is bad. Then they just start chucking things that they don't want you to do, like have civil liberties in that right wing bucket. And that's what I'm saying. So when I got labelled a conspiracy theorist, I didn't give a shit because I just think that's fun and inconsequential. But when people start going, oh, you're right wing, I'm like, I don't want to be, because that word is so stigmatized, and I think it was a plan. They stigmatized the word, then they start putting things under that banner to keep you well away from it, so it's got a stink on it. So totally. And they say, like, if you don't want to, if you want to pay less tax, then that's, oh, you're evil and greedy, and oh, why do you want to give it to the government so they can help people? They don't understand that, like, when you're just feeding this monolithic beast that, if you're spending your own money, you're probably doing more good. Yeah.
A lot more good than the government's doing.
And you've seen how they spend our money when you was working on the Death Star. You're like, this is the fucking wankers. But that's what I'm saying. So they've called that conspiracy theory now in the same way to just steer people away from aligning with it or talking about it. That is a conspiracy. That is a conspiracy.
Absolutely, and it's interesting that you sort of mentioned that they've all the stigma is attached to being right wing. They've sort of conditioned the phrase.
Yes.
They've also structured everything so that anything bad that's happened in the world, like, all right, if it's communism, we just ignore it. Nobody ever hears about that. But the Nazis weren't like conservatives. The Nazis were socialists.
Exactly, National Socialist
They were called
Party,
the National Socialists, and they didn't behave in any way like a free market libertarian or a conservative. They were the opposite of that. They were very authoritarian. They wanted to control the economy, just like the left.
When did they become labelled right wing? Maybe not at the time. I mean, like, we're talking left and right politically. I'm not saying good and bad, but you're right. They behaved like China and Russia, didn't they? They forced women to have babies and stuff.
If you look at the rhetoric coming from the left now, like, all the people cheering for Hezbollah, cheering for the Houthi rebels, cheering for Iran, and wanting Israel wiped off the map. It's like, well, that's exactly what the Nazis did. And the Nazis, Hitler was good mates with what's his name, the Grand Mullah guy. I can't remember what his name was.
I know what you mean. But so that is bizarre, and that everyone has got such a blind spot regarding their hypocrisy around Israel, because, and again, I don't know. I don't understand when they will get together and have this memo that goes around that goes, this, you're allowed to say what you want for supporting Palestine. But if you say anything to the contrary, you sort of feel like you're in danger almost. It's like there's certain beliefs you're allowed to have, and they tend to be the left-wing ones. And if you even have a centrist ones, it's like, don't stick your head above the parapet. Oh, fuck me. Don't say maybe they shouldn't have gone into Israel and killed a load of people at a festival. Don't say that.
Yeah, that attack, the October 7th attack, which we're a year on from it, that's justified by people on the left.
I know.
As this is decolonialism, and it's interesting that this attack really sort of put meat in the bones of what that phrase actually means, because all this is sort of dry academic stuff, decolonialism, abolishing whiteness, all this stuff that comes out of the elite universities, and they talk about it. But then what they actually mean is, slaughtering people, raping kids at a music festival. It's not pleasant stuff. But the October 7th attacks were justified by a lot of people on the left. They say, well, Israel's stolen the land, they're European colonizers, all this stuff that's patently bollocks. I mean, if you're going to look at colonialism, maybe look at, a relatively recent religion that has managed and Islam is more than a religion. It's it's a way of political,
cultural,
social organization. So it's not at all just something to do with your.
It's not something you believe. It's something you have to do. You have to follow rules and behave in a certain way. Yeah,
and it's all to do with social control and political control as well. And that's taken over the whole of the Middle East, swathes of Africa. Southeast Asia, it's in lots of places, Central Asia as well. So if we're going to talk about colonialism, man, Israel is the one bit that hasn't been colonized.
And look how it was founded. It was founded for a reason, and that was because, well, we know how it was founded. But yeah, so do you think, before we go, like, I've got this analogy, which is, if you've ever watched starlings flock, they make these beautiful patterns in the sky, and they all go left and they all go right. Now, I know that the starlings... You what, sorry? Murmurations of starlings. Now, I know that they don't all have a meeting before they go to the sky and go, right, we're going to go up, then we're going to go left twice. They just react to the starling next to them, and they all do that, so it looks orchestrated. So do you think there is a cabal or an orchestrated whatever unit orchestrating all this stuff about making us roll over and making the right wing unacceptable beliefs and then like exploiting that? Or is it just everyone just knows how to move in the same way to get what they want? Do you know what I mean?
Well, first off, birds are government drones.
Yes, I do know that.
So yeah, that explains why the
and dinosaurs were dragons.
Yeah.
T-Rex, they were wings, right? Them little arms. Why would it evolve to have them little tiny arms? It makes no sense. It couldn't even reach its own mouth. They would have wing stubs. But anyway, that's another.
Yeah, totally. How would it like grab its cock and put it in a lady T-Rex? You know what I mean?
But this is the thing. People talk about evolution, but this thing is just got no arms. It's like they were wings. Yeah. I reckon. So, do you think there's an overarching intelligence to it?
Yeah, they've got ideologists working out, the theory in elite institutions, like all the sort of DEI stuff started at Harvard Law School, and then it's propagated out to institutions through, diversity, equity, and inclusion departments, HR departments. So it gets, embedded in all the institutions, all corporations. So there is structure to it, but also it's sort of enabled by, I guess, social media and the fact that. In social media, everybody's a lot more utopian than they are in real life. Like if you're down the pub with your mates, you're not going to be, talking and all this like, I bought a homeless man a pizza, and here's a picture. You know what I mean? Like, it's why the fuck are you telling me this?
Yeah.
So, well, on social media, people are a lot more like that. I saw something racist today, and I thought it was terrible.
That old chestnut. When new acts do it, and I've started posting them, going, I've seen all this before, mate. And it's the female comedian. I see it. They go, I did a gig last night, and a woman came up to me and said, I don't normally find women funny, but you were absolutely brilliant. I'm like, fuck, I've read this 100 times. Do you know what I mean? You're just human beings. You're always bigging yourself up, gassing yourself up under the guise of. So what's the next thing coming, man? What are you worried about? What do you think is going to be the next move? Because have you heard the conspiracy about glasses?
Glasses?
You know that all celebrities are wearing these big, massive glasses now.
Oh, yeah.
They're making them
Keep
fashionable.
The
No, it's because Facebook and Meta are bringing out these augmented reality glasses. And the one thing people are going to go is, they look stupid. They're too big. So all the influencers are being paid money to wear these huge glasses. So they're So what do you think's coming around the corner? Because you're more of a political animal than me. What do you think's coming politically that you need to watch out for?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could be facing a big financial crunch in the next few years because basically we're not going to be able to service our public sector pensions and all the benefits and and also the state pension as well. The country's not going to be able to afford it. The government's going to try by jacking up tax take. But the more you put up taxes are getting to the point where people are just leaving the country or working out ways to avoid paying avoid paying tax.
Yeah.
And also there's a thing when a country's not a sort of high trust harmonious place where people feel like brothers. If you've got multiculturalism, if you've got half the country,
we've seen that recently, haven't we?
Yeah, then people don't feel that they want to pay into the system.
No, and
because
also
they're not supporting people like them.
With the protests / riots, people were smashing up their own communities because they don't value them and feel they've got nothing to lose. And like I always say, if you've got a nice car and can go on holiday 2 weeks of the year, you're not going to go on a riot. It's just that these people, rightly or wrongly, whatever their particular individual motivation was, because everyone doesn't always think the same way.
Yeah,
it's a sign of civil unrest and dissatisfaction, isn't it? And if you're talking about a financial crisis, it's only going to get worse.
Oh yeah, it's gonna get worse. I mean, financial crises are normally the sort of catalyst. If you look at the fall of the Weimar Republic, that was the catalyst for Hitler to come to power. The reparations that Germany was paying, was completely unsustainable. So when we have that crunch, and also when the government raises taxes, it's actually going to reduce the amount of money it's taking in. And as they ramp up immigration to try and it's like throwing kindling on a fire. It's not putting in place the long-term structures to sort of make a solid economy. So that's gonna drive things. Also, I just see the sort of level of degeneracy in the left. There's going to be a push to sort of decriminalize and normalize paedophilia.
I think so.
And you're already seeing that.
Maps.
You're seeing that with there's a LGBT charity, LGBT Youth Scotland, and the CEO got done for being in Britain's or Scotland's biggest child abuse ring. And somebody else just got done for it. Another LGBT Youth Scotland, somebody who wrote a coming out guide for kids for them. And I just think the people the sort of nonsense who would have 50 years ago would have gone into the Catholic Church to have status in the community and also so you're not getting questioned and access to children.
Yeah.
They're now going into these other organisations.
We just said, didn't we? It's like a modern religion. These DEI organisations. That is where you can't question the groupthink. They're where they would go. So anyway, Leo Kearse, he's a comedian, great comedian. You got a lot of hats. I was thinking this. You're actually a broadcaster, aren't you? Like that's actually quite mad. Like I think back to when we met all those years ago in that basement. Yeah. And you've got a YouTube channel which is.
Yeah, it's just Leo Kearse.
Yeah, you've got loads of subscribers, haven't you?
Yeah, I think 126,000 now.
I've got 44. Not 1,000, 44. You got to start somewhere. Anyway, so what are you on X and Twitter and all that shit at Leo Kearse?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's Leo Kearse. Thanks, Leo. Hope that was a fun conversation and see you soon, man.
See you later, man. Cheers.
Bye.